Hi there, my name is Finn and I'm an instructor in the southeast of England, and this is my series of videos called Grounded, where maybe you're not flying today and you really want to be. Maybe the weather's rubbish, or you've just not managed to get a booking because your club's really busy, or maybe an aircraft's had to go into maintenance. So you're stuck on the ground. And what we're going to do with these series of videos is use this time on the ground wisely so you can rock up at your next lesson way better prepared, so it goes so much smoother, and with the real long-term aim of helping you get through that PPL course way quicker. So what we're going to look at today is we're going to get you knowing and learning way more about your aircraft than you have so far. Because your instructor, they probably seem or appear to know everything there is to know about the aircraft. They will have an encyclopedic brain. They know exactly what speed to do everything, what power settings to use, how all the systems on the aircraft work. And what I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to let you into a big secret. They haven't had this information passed them down from one instructor to another, and they haven't gone and spoken to the engineers who built the aircraft themselves. All they've done is look in the instruction manual and memorized it. And that's what you can do as well. So you can end up with an encyclopedic brain of how each aircraft you're operating works. So what we're going to look at today is what those instruction manuals look like, where to find them. I'm going to set you a task of a few things to find from them so you can get to know your aircraft better. So let's get started. So you'll probably hear these instruction manuals called one of a couple of things, either called the POH, the Pilot's Operating Handbook, or the AFM, the Aircraft Flight Manual. For our purposes, they mean essentially the same thing. But maybe you've been flying for a bit already. Maybe you're in a third of the way into your PPL course or something, and maybe you haven't even ever seen one of these. Where do you even find them? Well, these are the three places you can find them. The first is in the aircraft. Amongst all the documents that that should be available for you when you go fly the aircraft, is the POH, the AFM, should be there. And in fact, each aircraft has its own unique manual that's specific to it. Because if you add a system or change something on it, or maybe the aircraft just gets old and the regulators say, well, you need to add an extra bit of speed onto this, or distance onto the takeoff distance, whatever it might be, they can add and adjust this manual as the plane progresses through its life as an aircraft, as a machine. And so each aircraft has its own specific one. Now, they're quite expensive to replace, and because of that, some flight schools are quite careful, very careful with them, because they don't want to spend out the money for them. So they may say, don't go leafing through that old 30, 40-year-old manual. We've scanned it in here. So maybe they might provide it on their website or something like that. Or maybe you just have to ask them for a copy. If they're not sort of open, maybe it's late at night and you can't get hold of them right now and you can't see anything on their website, another place to go is just Google. But as soon as you get away from your aircraft and the flight school being the source, just be a bit careful that you're getting the right type. If you fly PA28, for example, there's loads of different PA28s. Are you flying a 141, 161, 181, 11111? Try and find out exactly which one you're flying. For the Cessna 152s, the manual's pretty much the same. But don't forget, the regulator or a mechanic or a maintenance organisation may have added something to this manual that won't show up when you just Google for the POH. They all follow a sort of set, most of the more modern ones anyway, follow a set sort of structure. So what I'm going to talk about now is what you'll find in there. The first thing you'll find in there is like a general description. What the plane looks like, what the engine is like, what fuel it needs, how many seats does it have, this sort of thing. And then the second chapter is normally about limitations. What's the fastest you can go? What's the heaviest it can be? What's its how high can it go? These sort of limitations that the manufacturer says, look, don't push it, don't do any more than this. Maybe this might also dictate what manoeuvres you can or can't do, or how to do those manoeuvres. Then you'll find the emergency procedure section, which will look quite similar to the emergency checklist or the emergency section of the checklist that you've hopefully already seen and had a look at. And in fact, all the checklists you'll use in your flight school come from the POH, from the AFM. They may be modified, added to for simplification purposes, or to try and make something more safe, or maybe they've learned lessons as they've gone on operating these aircraft and added extra things to checklists. But they're all based on these procedures from the manufacturer. And then the next section you'll find is the normal procedures. How do you start the engine? How should you be taxiing the aircraft? How should you be climbing the aircraft? And hopefully, as you look through these normal procedures, these sort of all look a bit familiar. Then the next chapter is normally performance. This tells you if you've essentially how long it's going to take you to climb to a certain altitude, how much fuel you'll burn as you cruise along, how long a runway you need to take off or land under certain conditions. All these sort of things, all these numbers are calculated for you. And the idea is before any flight, you should be calculating how long a runway you need to take off and land, and how much fuel you need from all these different places. And it's all there in Chapter 5, Performance. You may also find the next chapter about weight and balance. It'll tell you how to work out the specific mass and balance and centre of gravity for the aircraft and what the limits are around that. And then there'll be a section about certain systems on the aircraft, how to use, for example, the fuel systems, or maybe there's a radio in there that describes how to operate. And then these can go on. They might also give you sort of handling tips, like how you handle the aircraft on the ground or in cold weather, or there might be supplements, and these are the kind of things that are normally added in after you buy an aircraft, or maybe if you buy them with an optional extra, then there might be a supplement in there about this. And then there might be some tips at the end about how to operate the aircraft. So that's the general structure of the POH, and most of them follow the same sort of thing. Okay, so what I want to do is just have a quick look at a few and see what they look like. So if I just type in Cessna 152 POH, and just the first thing that comes up should be about right. It should look a little something like this. Maybe if you're flying the PA-28, you might want to Google PA-28. Make sure you get the right number, everyone. So let's look at the 161 POH. And yeah, let's just try this one. And yeah, this looks about right. Just be really careful that you make sure you use it, get the right model number in there. And you'll notice that all of these follow the similar sort of layout and description as well as we were just talking about a second ago. And the same for the PA-28 after the intro bit here. So similar sort of, you can, once you start to look at these more, you learn to know which chapter to go to quite quickly. And actually, I don't want to show you too much. I don't want to dive in too much about these. What I want you to do now is get yourselves up on Google, download the one for the aircraft that you're operating in, and I'm going to set you a challenge of 10 things that I want you to find from the POH. So the first thing I want you to find is the fuel capacity. And there might be a few numbers that we're interested in here. The total amount of fuel that the aircraft can hold, but you know that we can't use all of it. So how much usable fuel is there? How much unusable fuel is there? And also if your aircraft has, some of them have a sort of little tab or a collar that indicates normally half or 3/4 of the tank is full. How many gallons are left in that tank if you fill it up to that instead of going all the way to full? So I want you to learn a little bit about the fuel capacity. Then I want you to find out what the maximum takeoff weight is. And be a bit careful because these aircraft flight manuals will have the empty weight. So if you do start taking a deep dive into mass and balance calculations, these POHs will have the standard empty weight of an aircraft when it comes out the factory, not when it's been resprayed and had new engine fitted and is 30 years old. And we weigh them fairly regularly so that there's you'll know if you go back to your flight school, they'll be able to point you towards the most recent weighing of the aircraft, which will give you a more specific number. But I want to find out the maximum takeoff weight. The next thing I want to find out is the maximum demonstrated crosswind that this aircraft has been demonstrated to do. Now, this isn't a limit, although if your instructor has ever said to you, sorry, we can't fly today, and you look out the window and it's a beautiful day, it's a bit breezy, but nothing crazy, maybe this is one of the reasons why the wind isn't aligned enough with the runway and it's a bit strong and it's over the demonstrated crosswind. Some organisations say they don't want you to take off and land at more than the maximum demonstrated crosswind. Some of them say that's just a guidance and you should use your judgment. I'd say once you're up near the max demonstrated crosswind, then certainly I wouldn't go up near there in the early days of being a PPL until you've got loads of experience. Number 4, I want you to find out the rotate speed or the lift-off speed. Depends how it's required and how the takeoff is flown in your aircraft. But I want you to find out the speed that you should be lifting off from the runway. I also want you to find the best angle of climb speed and also the best rate of climb speeds. There should be 2 different speeds in your book there. I also want you to find out the best glide speed. And if you're really interested, I want you to think about the altitude you normally fly at. Maybe it's 2,000 feet in the area that you fly in. And I want you to work out how far you can glide as well. See if the POH tells you that. Also, I want you to have a look at what the normal approach speeds are. Your school may have adjusted these for various reasons, and just go with what your instructor's been telling you, but have a look and see how that compares. If there's a big difference, have a conversation with your instructor about what the difference is. And now we're starting to get some more difficult technical ones. You'll know if you've flown some takeoffs. If you haven't done that yet, you've got this to come. But one of the first things you check in when you start taking off is that the engine is producing the right amount of power. And up till now, you've probably just looked over there, it's been up near the top of the RPM gauge somewhere, and so you've gone, yeah, power's set, or it's producing full power, and you've then got on with taking off and your other checks you'll do next. But what figure are we actually looking for? If the RPM needle only went to 2100, would that be enough? What I want you to do for your aircraft type is find out, and it's in there somewhere, of what the full power static RPM figure is. And this is the figure you're looking for when we're doing the takeoff. It might be given as a range, it might be given for a certain altitude, might be given for certain altitudes. Have a look, see what it says about what you would expect the static RPM at full power to be. And then 10, now we're getting nice and complicated. I want you to go and find out what the cruise fuel consumption is using today's conditions at 3,000 foot. So I want you to go and find out what the weather is like today, get into POH. Some of them are graphs. We have to draw lines, or you can follow lines with your finger. Some of them are going to be tables where you have to make adjustments. Whichever method you're using, I want you to get in there. And if you're not quite sure, time to ask your instructor. Or check back in on my channel on YouTube and you'll see me going through the POH, finding the answers to these questions. It's not going to be up yet, be up in the next couple of days if you're watching this as soon as it's out. If you're watching this in the future, just go back, search through my YouTube channel and find me and see me going through the POH. So that's your challenge if you choose to accept it. Get to know your aircraft way better and get to impress your instructor. And also when it comes to the flight lessons itself, they'll go way quicker and easier. So let me know what you thought of the video, comment down below and all that sort of good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy your time on the ground.